South Carolina Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy is chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. He joins us tonight from Greenville. Welcome back to Special Report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Brett.
First of all, on the Kavanaugh situation, your thoughts about where we are now and this latest letter from her attorney that they're now negotiating on her to testify.
It's an incredibly serious allegation that, in my judgment, Brett, is not mitigated by the passage of time. It's an equally straightforward denial by Judge Kavanaugh. When the suspect says, "I was not even at the scene of the party," that's a classic credibility context. One witness says that I was physically and sexually assaulted to the point that I was in fear for my life. And the person that she names as the suspect says I was not even at the party. So the only way I know to reconcile that is for Dr. Ford to testify and for Judge Kavanaugh to testify, and for good, fair, but firm questions to be asked of both. I don't know how an FBI investigation would help unless they're able to locate witnesses that can either corroborate or contradict. There is no crime scene to analyze. There are no forensics to analyze. And the FBI can't interview her and Judge Kavanaugh and then repeat back what they say. You can't determine credibility that way. So I hope that she comes. I hope that she will testify. I think she'll be treated fairly. I would hope that she would. And I think Judge Kavanaugh should also be given an opportunity to respond to these allegations.
You mentioned the FBI investigation call, and that really is what Democrats are saying the most. Here is Senator Doug Jones and also Sheldon Whitehouse.
I prosecuted 38-year-old cases, so they're pretty good about locating witnesses and finding people. That's their job. They're a hell of a lot better at it than the Senate majority or minority staff. That's what the FBI does. That's what they're trained to do.
But even if they were to ram this guy through, as soon as Democrats get gavels, we're going to want to get to the bottom of this.
If the Democrats win back the House and or the Senate, Democrats will investigate what happened.
I am confident of that, and I think we'll also be investigating why the FBI stood down its background investigation when this came up.
All right, there's two. I want one more. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand just a few moments ago, earlier this afternoon.
Judge Kavanaugh has not asked to have the FBI review these claims. Is that the reaction of an innocent person? It is not.
Can you get reaction to all of those?
Wow. When I walked into the studio tonight, there was a presumption of innocence, and you did not have to prove your innocence. So I'm a little surprised at what the senator from New York said. Brett, I'll tell you this. I think that Dr. Ford met with Democrat legislators before the FBI investigated it. I know that she talked to the Washington Post before the FBI investigated it. The FBI does not have jurisdiction over state sex assault claims. If they want to locate witnesses, if there are witnesses that know whether or not this happened, I'm all for it, and I'm all for them being compelled to come testify. But the FBI does not have jurisdiction over a state sex assault claim, and Judge Kavanaugh does not have the burden of proving his innocence. He has said he was not present. The last time I checked, the government has the burden of proof in a criminal case. Now, if someone argued, well, this isn't criminal, you know, Brett, he was vetted for the second highest court in the land 15 years ago. These are incredibly serious allegations. If they make you unfit for the highest court in the land, would they also not make you unfit for the second highest court in the land?
Sounds like it's going to continue even if he gets through, according to Sheldon Whitehouse. I want to turn topics. The Senate Judiciary Committee is obviously investigating all that, and they say they're on top of the Kavanaugh investigation, even though Democrats are not taking part. Now to the topic of the declassification. Here's the former CIA director on this order by the president to declassify these documents and texts.
I think they should continue to push. If Mr. Trump and the White House does not relent, well, then I think they have some decisions to make, whether or not they're going to just not follow that direction and be fired, or to resign. They have an obligation, since they took an oath of office to the Constitution of the United States, not to Mr. Trump, to uphold their responsibilities.
So he's essentially saying to intelligence officials, don't do it.
I've read every document that is under consideration. Brett, I don't think the release of this information is going to change anyone's mind. It's certainly not going to change John Brennan's mind, because remember, he wanted Donald Trump put on the dustbin of history. He's accused him of treasonous conduct. John Brennan is as responsible for the American public being divided on this issue as anyone I can possibly think of. So I honestly, no disrespect intended to him, could really give a damn less what John Brennan thinks the president or the intelligence agency should do. He's part of the reason that we are in this historic conundrum. I've read it. Other than one document related to George Papadopoulos, I don't think people are going to be that interested in it. And I don't think any minds are going to be changed. I think the bias of Peter Strzok has resulted in us having a hung jury, frankly, no matter what comes out.
And for all the talk about concern on sources and methods, you're one of the only people who's read through the unredacted papers. What about that?
I would tell Chris and Dan Coates and everyone else, by the way, all of whom were Trump appointees, that if you are concerned about sources and methods, if you're concerned about relationships with friendly foreign governments, then you need to go sit down with the president and say, look, there's a way we can get this information out, but safeguard sources and methods. I would think the president would be open to that. In fact, I know he would. So if Chris is concerned, if Dan Coates is concerned, they have unfettered access to the president, and they can go make the case. I've read it. Some of it's embarrassing for the Department of Justice. Some of it's embarrassing for the FBI. Embarrassment is not a reason to classify something. So a lot of it should be embarrassing to John Brennan. And maybe therein lies why he is so adamant that this information not be released. I've read it. I don't think it's going to change anyone's mind. But I've seen nothing in it that is going to jeopardize the national security interests of this country.
Last thing quickly, Mr. Chairman, do you think Attorney General Sessions keeps his job? The president continues talking about the Attorney General the other day, telling the Hill, I don't have an Attorney General. Brett, I think we're at the point of irreconcilable differences in this relationship, and I think he keeps Jeff Sessions until a sufficient number of Republican senators tell the president that someone else can be confirmed. I don't know who that person could be in this hyper-political environment. I hate it. That job, of all the cabinet level jobs, that is the one that I am most interested in having the right person in. And I hate that the president's relationship with Jeff Sessions has become what it is, and I hate that it's become public. But I think he's going to be the AG until someone else can be confirmed, and I don't know who that person would be. Is it you?
Heavens no. I'm not sure I could get the vote of my two Republican, well, Tim Scott probably, but Lindsey I think would be undecided.
Last thing, we last talked, you said you hadn't seen any evidence of Russian collusion at all. Still true today?
Yeah, Brett, the only thing is Adam Schiff in March of 2017 saying he had evidence that was more than circumstantial but not direct. And oh, by the way, there is no such thing. But if you can lay aside Adam Schiff, the wannabe senator from California, no one has presented any evidence. And the best way for that to be proven is release all the transcripts of all the witness interviews we did during 2017 down at House Intel. All of them. Jared Kushner, Donald Trump Jr., Susan Rice, Samantha Power, release all of them, because I ask every witness, give me all the evidence you have of collusion, coordination, conspiracy, regardless of whether or not you even believed it. Every bit of evidence you have, no one had anything. So there is no evidence of collusion, which is why the Democrats have pivoted to obstruction of justice.
Mr. Chairman, as always, we appreciate your time.
Thank you, Brett.
Here now with reaction is President Trump's attorney, Jay Sekulow. Full disclosure, he has done work for me, legal work in the past. So I think Lindsey Graham actually had the right approach. I think the president had the right approach. All right, if there's going to be a slight delay, I want everybody to be certain. The American people have a right to understand. The person that Professor Ford describes in the room has denied it. Then we have law clerks. Then we have 65 people that knew him at the time. Then we have other students in high school and in college and in law school and law clerks and people that worked with him in the Bush administration. And all the time he has been a judge, there's not one other person that only says glowing things about him, including his former girlfriends at the time.
Well, look, Sean, I mean, Judge Kavanaugh has stated that he will testify before the Senate. He said he would be willing to do it tomorrow. Dr. Ford has been offered the opportunity to appear as well. I think what Lindsey Graham said, it says it all. You evaluate the situation, and there'll be a vote. And look, I mean, no one can question whether Judge Kavanaugh has the intellect to serve on the Supreme Court of the United States. And if you're looking at judicial philosophy, he has over 300 published opinions. So I think from that standpoint, but you got to look at this. look, in this day and time, and I understand this, an allegation's been made. Judge Kavanaugh is going to respond. That's the appropriate way. The accuser is going to have her time as well, and it should be an orderly and appropriate process. I think what the president said is right. I think what Senator Graham has said is correct.
But I think when you look at the history, this is why I think Americans, I believe in the presumption of innocence. I want everybody to testify, including Professor Ford. But if you look at the history of Robert Bork and then Clarence Thomas, I think it gives people more reason to pause. And I don't think nobody was there. Nobody knows. What if it's only resolved that this woman makes this allegation, the person that was supposedly also in the room says no, the judge says no, there's nothing else in his career that marks a blemish on his character. He was a perfect gentleman is the words that so many people use that even dated him. Yeah. What then happens?
That's why the Constitution, Sean, that's why the Constitution has this process. The president nominates, and it's with the advice and consent of the Senate that a nominee is confirmed or not confirmed to the position. So what Senator Graham said and what Senator Grassley has stated is they're going to go through a process pursuant to the Constitution. That's the appropriate way to respond to this.
Let me ask you about the declassification, the redactions. Yes. Some have said that might be a long process. Others have said it could be done fairly expeditiously. Thoughts?
Well, look, the president issued an order. The president has that authority under Article 2. He exercised it. He has the authority, and he exercised that authority. And now the question is, you're asking the length of time for the process where it'll come out unredacted. That's intergovernmental. The government works on that. I would assume it's going to move expeditiously. But I think what's most important here is the American people are going to have a look, finally, at what actually was the beginning. What was it that started this inquiry in the first place? And if John Solomon and Sarah Carter are correct in their reporting and that the information is going to show some type of potential surveillance inside the Trump campaign, this would be an eye-opener. This would be shocking. This would create a situation where you have to look at the legitimacy of the beginning of the inquiry. I mean, we all focus on the fact that the inquiry, it looks like started with the Christopher Steele dossier.
Testified, as we now know, that they had nothing.
She said after 9 months, nothing.
But we
and
now
Sean,
know
that's 2
also
years
that there was
now,
a media
right?
leak strategy in the lead up to the appointment of the special counsel.
Right. And that, by the way, the media leak strategy in and of itself can be a violation of the law. So there is a host of problems from the top to bottom on this. I've said that for a year and a half on this broadcast. But you do have to point out that this inquiry started well before the appointment of the Office of Special Counsel, before Bob Mueller's appointment. And Lisa Page testified under oath that there was no evidence of any collusion. And let me take it a step further here, Sean. Peter Strzok, in those messages back and forth, said there was no there, and that's why he was reluctant to go over initially to the special counsel's office.
And interesting, Bob Woodward said he looked hard. He found nothing. Yeah. Senator Burr said they found nothing in the Senate committee. None of that ever gets reported, and it has been a nonstop, never-ending,
the thing
nearly
speaks
2
for
years
itself.
of this
That's
crap.
what we say in the law. Yeah. The thing speaks for itself. The evidence is clear.
All right, Jay Sekulow, thank you for being with us.